Welcome to the second session where we will be using Indian knowledge systems for creating a global well-being curriculum. In this session, we will be discussing what is a knowledge system, and we will use Indian knowledge systems way of knowing of comparison or upamana, and we will compare to find out what is the difference between Indian knowledge systems and current knowledge system. This course is on Indian knowledge systems. Before we begin an exercise to learn about it, we need to first ask you your impression about what is a knowledge system. Ponder carefully and answer. We pause here for you to frame and write down your answer. Our two eyes see reality using sense perception. Is a third eye needed to see the reality of, say, quantum physics? How to see reality hidden behind what the eye can see? Let us say there are two white birds. How do we know which one is which? To find out which one is superior, Indian knowledge system says, see their sense of discrimination. Its mythological bird Hansa declares its distinction from the crane or the egret by separating milk from water. Indian knowledge systems concludes that actions speak louder than appearances. It states discrimination is the basis of judging superiority. Its education imparts discrimination between good and evil and transforms human choices. The idea in Indian knowledge system is summarized in a mantra or in a saying, in fact, Hansah Shwetah Bakah Shwetah Ko Bheda Bhedo Bakahansayo Nir Kshir Viveke Tu Hanso Hansah Bako Bakah. Before discussing a knowledge system, let us look at the understanding of what is knowledge. There is a Latin phrase attributed to Sir Francis Bacon that knowledge is power. What if our understanding of knowledge is incomplete? Do we see the world as an exercise of power? Will its power not be misused then? Was the power of the knowledge system misused, causing the 2008 recession or the two world wars? What is the solution planned? This session will address these concerns. Future sessions will see if there is a cause for considering an alternate knowledge system like the Indian knowledge system, the IKS. Will IKS fit with the scientific temperament of scientists who explore reality? This will be explored later. Stated here is the nature of goal of IKS and the value it can add to current knowledge system or CKS. IKS uses knowledge as that which leads to wisdom awakening within individuals. IKS awakens the power of goodness and excellence. How? Vivekananda said, "Arise, awake and stop not till the goal is reached." Is awakening concept limited to Indian philosophers and the German researchers of Indian knowledge systems? Has IKS or Indian knowledge systems which is criticized by many, been properly researched and understood? Indian knowledge systems concepts have had a global reach. Wisdom in its tradition does not see power as that exercised by one individual over the other. Instead, it studies power as energy which activates electrons in an atom. This is what an Englishman researcher, Sir John Woodroffe, shares in his books like The World as Power and The World as Power Reality, etc. How does Sir John describe power in the Indian knowledge systems? And I quote him, It is the power of which matter is a gross manifestation, which is able to organize matter into living form, which is the first stage on the way towards liberation from matter and thus towards pure experience. Unquote. The human body too is matter. The power that gives life to the body or each atom is explored in Indian knowledge systems, not the power that makes one human conquer another. What is the experience IKS, Indian knowledge system, seeks? Each individual's self's potential of goodness filled with excellence is the experience which is sought. Hence, actualization of human potential is the experience that IKS works towards. Maslow, in modern psychology, calls it self-actualization. What power does IKS talk of? Is it a power to do evil? Sir Woodruff's comment on a doctrine of IKS was, Indian knowledge systems was, and I quote, "I think that this doctrine has been misunderstood and has been the subject of unjust judgments. I think also that it is a grand and inspiring system." Unquote. He adds, and I quote, "I do not write as an adherent of this or any other philosophical system or religious sect whatever, but as a free thinker and a free companion." Unquote. He is grateful to IKS for Indian knowledge systems for concluding there is not only physical food but food for the mind too. This was when science thought that the brain secretes thoughts as the liver secretes bile. Was science at that time treating the human mind as nothing else but the brain's toilet? Karl Vogt in the 19th century was the father of this generally accepted view. What is the conception of power we have? Is the power coming from the brain secreting thoughts of hunger, or are humans capable of any deeper thought? The Indian knowledge system says that the mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. What is the difference between human and myopic animal reality perception? Has an exclusive focus on animal based sense perception led to greed? Animals don't kill beyond hunger to hoard their prey and call it wealth. Has looking beyond sense perception led to progress? Should we use Indian knowledge systems practices for the mind and not treat the mind as the brain's toilet? For thousands of years, apples have fallen off trees. What made Newton think of gravity while an animal always thought of this as a way of nature to provide it food? Newton looked beyond the power that makes the apple drop. He looked beyond the sense perception of desire of food. We should benefit from both perceptions of the power of the apple to satisfy hunger and the power that made the apple and the power that made it fall too. Animal sense perception uses power to seek food. IKS, or Indian knowledge systems, uses power of thought to attain its goals, the goal of life. Sir John Woodruff writes, and I quote, "Talking of food, it is curious to note here that all the characteristics of living matter are now regarded by the great majority of biologists as secondary qualities in comparison with nutrition, which is considered to be the essential attribute of life. In this ancient Indian doctrine also, emphasis is laid on the physiology of nutrition, all the main Vayus except Udana being concerned with this function of living substance." Unquote. The search for truth is common. Animals are guided strongly by their sense perception and need for food. Does attachment to the gross food limit animals' truth of seeing the apple only as food? Does their attachment to a gross physical form of apple limit their ability to use the subtle, invisible mind? Newton's need went beyond instant gratification or attachment to the gross body of the apple. He used sense perception differently. Without attachment of the mind to the physical form of the apple, he was able to use the invisible mind to search for the invisible truth of gravity. Does that mean that the invisible can only grasp the invisible? No, says Indian knowledge systems. All invisible vital airs or vayus help the functioning of life in the body. This shows that the invisible sustains the visible. Ancients sought to comprehend how the subtle airs or the vayus can sustain the gross body and make it work. Power is exercised by some animals to get food. They hunt. Humans can seek the power of their mind. What guides the knowledge system today? The IB curriculum, we discovered, has sense perception as the first way of knowing. This sense perception is better in some animals. Of course, if we look at discoveries like gravity, they went beyond sense perception. Sense perception leads to a search for immediate gratification. Is the ideal of greed-driven sense perception being questioned by some? A business news website found that Silicon Valley tech workers are using an ancient philosophy, and I quote, "Though several Eastern philosophies such as Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism have a Western, clear practical element, Stoicism is one of the most accessible and explicitly practical schools of philosophy. The philosophy advocates self-control and not being overly indulgent in sensual pleasures." Unquote. The movement away from a greed-based worldview will change the understanding of power. The source of the power that drives each electron in the atom may slowly become the new focus, just as it was in the Indian knowledge systems thousands of years ago. Currently, we may still be searching for the truth, but do we seek a truth that makes us exercise power over others? Or do we seek the truth of the source of all power in the universe? Is truth understood by us as that which is convenient to our sense perception? Sir John Woodruff states, and I quote, "Indirectly and on the whole, man tends to the truth, but directly and immediately what he holds to or seeks is not the truth, but the truth which he wants. It is the cravings of his psychical being which he satisfies." Unquote. To put it in a simple way, does he mean that after our hunger is fulfilled, we keep on eating tasty food, with the mind convincing us that the truth is that we are still hungry? Nutritionists tell us how much food the body needs, but the mind convinces us differently. Similarly, the mind may convince that inappropriate behavior of killing others in the name of religion is the voice of conscience. Actually, it may be misinterpreting the revealed truth of religion. All of us naturally seek the truth. But what instrument is measuring the truth? What if the compass used is faulty? The compass that shows us the direction, the compass that guides us the way, suppose it is faulty. If sense organs are the only instruments, the only compass, then they are directed by inner desire, Sir Woodruff concludes. He says, and I quote, "If there be a really detached search for truth, it is excessively rare." Unquote. Hence, can we say that truth may be that which is convenient to our state of mind. This is the case when sense perception is overpowering unbiased judgment. Is Indian knowledge system criticized because it separates the truth of grains of wheat from the chaff of sense perception during the process of investigating? Animals have sense perception and survive cleverly. Are humans like them, or can we be different? Should we be cleverer or wiser? Does this depend on the use of sense perception? How you think determines how you feel. Think of finding the truth. This is what Indian knowledge system says. Ellen Rees, the aesthetic realism chairman of education, writes, and I quote, "We need to know the difference between bad cleverness and good. The nature of the cleverness depends on the two desires that Ellie Siegel has shown are fighting in everyone: the desire to respect the world versus the desire to have contempt for it." Unquote. In Indian knowledge systems, it is described in a mantra: Sarvajiva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratigachati. Sarvajiva Tiraskaram Keshavam Pratigachati. It guides us that whatever is the dearest to us is the recipient of our innermost desires. This mantra thus motivates us to have clean, wholesome attitude of respect for the world. Rees further says, and I quote, "From the desire to respect comes all truly useful, beautiful, kind cleverness. From contempt comes the cleverness that's hurtful, ugly, truly dumb, though it may temporarily seem, oh, so bright." In fact, there's a feeling in people that contempt as such, the getting an addition to self through the lessening of something else, is cleverness. That it's the cleverness one needs to protect oneself and prosper in the world. Yet this clever thing, contempt, in its various forms, is the reason the person is having it feels the person that's having this kind of feeling feels empty, anxious, dull, painfully unsure, hiddenly self-despising. Unquote. Being clever for humans, Sir John Woodruff writes, is judged by evidence of results of actions, and I quote, "After all, it is what a man is and does which counts. The notion that mere cleverness is enough is not a Hindu one." Unquote. When we ask students speak the truth, we would like them to separate the truth of their mental cravings and try to discover a reality that exists outside them. Without self-observation, self-exploration, and self-discovery, everything else is theory. All philosophy without practice is full loss of time and energy. The eye to see reality with. A knowledge system is the eye to see reality. What if the vision is faulty or the compass guiding is wrong? Will a faulty vision create social disorder, crime, economic recessions, and be unable to control the spread of a coronavirus? Which area of science explores reality? A quantum physicist will tell us that the reality of the world is totally different from what we see. If we know the reality of the universe, why doesn't our knowledge system tell us how to live in it? Will grasping the reality revealed by quantum physics help us predict, say, the 2008 and 2020 economic recessions? Can application of a knowledge system guide us how to prevent it? The right application of knowledge is wisdom. This course only explores application of knowledge. It ignores all other details. Knowledge, if used as a knife in the trained hand of a surgeon, can cure. Given to untrained hands, it can lead to murder. The right application of knowledge or a knowledge system is wisdom. Wisdom is endless, infinite, yet it is one. That is, it uses the same perspective when it has to be applied in life. Wisdom is like an ocean. This course will not make you drink the ocean of any or all knowledge systems. Instead, it presents only a drop of the ocean for you to get its taste. The taste is different from the current taste. This is the spirit of knowledge seeking in Indian knowledge systems. One way to begin the journey in IKS or Indian knowledge systems is to see the reality of power. Indian knowledge system states that the reality of the power that animates everything is the subtlest of the subtle. Just as the animal was attached to the gross apple, once he was attached, he could not explore the subtle reality. We too must look beyond gross reality. This will imply that attachments to gross objects should be properly restricted. There is nothing wrong in attachment expressed as love for family, kith and kin. This attachment is not wrong. In fact, IKS asks us to love parents and show regard for brothers and sisters. It also asks us to keep the body fit and healthy. These are legitimate desires. However, it seeks a voluntary limit to such attachments. The fire in the oven, for example, should be just enough for the food to be cooked. The salt to be added should be limited to the quantity that is needed. Salt in excess will spoil. Likewise, attachments should be properly restricted. Without restraint, it says, excessive desires become an evil. It leads to misery. 2008 is an example. How to limit desires. It has a logic that helps. The Indian knowledge system states that the world is made up of objects. Only when we are awake do we recognize these objects. We take sense perception as reality, but are the senses real? The senses and the body that enjoys them, Indian knowledge system says, are both inert. How? Suppose the power that powers the electrons, all movement stops the movement of the breath in the body. What will happen? Will the body and senses remain alive or be inert? The inert body and senses function because of the presence of consciousness in the mind, the intellect, and the feeling of I as ego. Once the power that animates consciousness goes away, all phenomena in the universe will become inert. Thus, it points out that the entire phenomenal universe is inert. By this way of looking, it is gross. This gross universe has to be treated as inert matter. The four subtle elements of consciousness, the mind, the intellect, the will, and the ego, which disappear after power that brings them to life is withdrawn, too can be called Maya or illusion. What is Maya? Ma means not and Ya means exist. Quantum physics tells us that what we think exists doesn't exist in that manner. That which does not exist but appears to exist is Maya. Maya makes the unreal appear as real and the real as unreal. Its other name is Ajnana, ignorance. Ajnana is that which hides the real from you and makes you regard the non-existent as existing. It makes the false appear as true. Humility is the way to begin the journey in Indian knowledge systems. Each individual is given an awareness that their body is part of the cosmos. After all, the same power that is making everything move is making the sense perception possible too. Imagining how this body is in relation to this vast universe is critical. Recognition of one's infinitesimally puny size should lead to humility. At the same time, there is infinite potentiality within humans. That is why IKS declares that the infinite power that powers creation is subtler than the subtlest atom and vaster than the vastest object in creation. To create well being and then bliss, IKS asks us to listen, think over what is reality. We must listen carefully to what is said and think it over. But only when we put it into practice it becomes ours. Thus, three things are emphasized: Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. Shravan means hearing. Whatever you hear, you should revolve in your mind. That is Manan. Then Nididhyasan is putting it into practice. Knowing the above truth of gross nature of things and the small gross size of our human body does not restrict us in searching and unifying with the infinite source of power. Education gives us knowledge of these facts, or Jnanatum. Knowing is not enough. We must see objects from this point of view, or Drashtatum. Only then living in this truth, or Praveshtum, is possible. Well being is enjoying fully the possibilities of happiness and bliss that life offers to oneself as a part of society. Just as you know that chocolates are in a certain shop, that is Gyantum. Go and see it, that is Drashtatum. When you consume them and the sweet taste of the chocolates becomes one with you, that is Praveshatum. To taste the sweet bliss needs knowing that it is possible and practicing the way to see reality. The quantum reality of the universe also shows that nothing is stable. What we think is fixed is actually moving. Only the source that powers all phenomena is fixed. Everything else is dynamic. Its education seeks that students enjoy the permanence of that one power which signifies oneness of the universe and all creation. Those who entered this or praveshtum or tasted it described it as an experience of bliss beyond words. What leads to it? This unity of Jnanatum, Drashtatum, Praveshtum, knowing, seeing, and experiencing, is the unity in the diversity which is the real path to Ananda or eternal delight. Similarly, knowledge of the gross nature of evidence given by sense perception has to be known, seen at every moment, and this will lead to the experience of living in it. Living in such experience leads to bliss. Some accuse Indian knowledge systems of making students give up the world. For many decades in the last century, India's low GDP growth was called Hindu rate of growth. Its renunciation does not mean giving up everything. It really means you should stay where you are in whatever station of life you are in and understand the subtle nature of things while giving up desire based on the external aspect. It means that by using discrimination, you should know what to expect and what to reject. You should strive to recognize the divinity in every object you see and enjoy it. Inspired by the spirit of Indian knowledge systems and its investigation methods, we ask three questions and present an answer. 1. What is a knowledge system? It investigates the truth, comprehends it, applies it. Do some scholars who investigate the truth agree to the efficacy of Indian knowledge systems? How to use it then? 2. Is the global knowledge system seeking a change? We examine the case for an alternate knowledge system. 3. What is the solution global knowledge system seeks? Its history and current challenges are also addressed in this course. Evidence of how Indian knowledge system meets the new goal of education is shared. While following the four ways of knowing of Indian knowledge system, this course simultaneously follows its method. How it investigates the truth, comprehends it and applies it. Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan in its terminology. Evidence is application of Nididhyasan or absorption of the truth. In the evidence shared later, it is shown to emerge from four human values that are the basis of all religions too. Given this evidence, a possible comprehension emerging from Manan is discussed here. An inference is drawn how it may impact subjects that plan for progress, economics and management, and subjects that make it happen, that is mathematics and sciences, is there. What is the revealed truth or Shravana, revealed in the ancient Indian texts? That is explored. practice of this truth led to behavior that enabled the evidence of well-being in a microcosm of society to emerge. This Shravana is the same as Shabda Pramana. Many have not experienced it. How to explain it? It is being called the voice of conscience here. Above all the above three, investigating the truth, comprehending it, and applying it depends on practices, not theory. Speak the truth is the first among them. That was the necessary condition. Speak the truth. This sufficient condition for investigating truth about the right knowledge system is followed here. It begins by asking what is a knowledge system, explores if the current knowledge system is seeking the change and why, it checks what is the solution that the current knowledge system seeks, and explores some scholars who investigated truth to see if they agree to the efficacy of Indian knowledge systems. It then presents evidence of the application of IKS in a microcosm of society for 4 decades. It proposes a possible comprehension of ideas that plan for progress and enable it. Finally, ideas of Indian knowledge system whose application led to the evidence are shared. Why is a knowledge system needed? A knowledge system helps clarify processes used for human decision making, formulates practices, and identifies best practices. A knowledge system is needed to prevent social and economic problems, purify the spirit with which human actions are performed. If human sense perception gives an inadequate comprehension of truth, will relying on it not distort the vision that applies the truth for actions in society? The full impact of comprehending and applying the right knowledge system will be felt after a necessary condition of the course is fulfilled by students. To do all this, the course has only one condition. It not only explores the truth about reality, but also seeks to actualize each student's potential. Investigating truth in wisdom's tradition needs students to speak the truth, always. That will lead to investigating it, comprehending it, applying it. Humans have 3 outputs: thought, word, and deed. To actualize their potential, there must be harmony between these 3. Hence, if in thought they seek the truth, in word they must speak it and apply it in action. Think about this alternative way of seeing things. IKS uses this to actualize personal potential and society's potential simultaneously. We present evidence of its application in society later. This course does not give theory, but seeks the spirit of Indian knowledge systems, which leads to well-being. It gives importance to application of knowledge, not theory. It explores the spirit that creates well-being, and this spirit can easily be applied by all, irrespective of their religion, belief in God. It is useful for agnostics too. It reveres all texts that reveal the highest truth, that individual and social well-being are closely interlinked. Such an understanding enables humans to achieve their potential. Instead of arguing over interpretations of theory, it explores ideas that have created evidence of well-being, the new goal of education, synchronous with the goal of society being achieved. This evidence is working for over 4 decades. It ignores terminology of any knowledge system, and it focuses on concepts to be practiced. Different perceptions of reality are possible. Are current problems due to reality based on greed? We take an example of the current knowledge system, that is IB curriculum. We will take the popular IB International Baccalaureate curriculum of current knowledge systems. It is followed in 159 countries. It has agreements in USA, South Korea, Japan, Spain, etc. Its website testimonial is by Stanford University's USA. The IB curriculum rests on a theory of knowledge and many wonderful ideas. It changes focus from what to think to how to think. However, some precautions may also be needed to avoid pitfalls. How to think of ideas that prevent wars and social pain? What is the reason this didn't happen? Theories, conjectures presently used are wonderful. However, often they are treated as value neutral or scalar when applied by practitioners. Wisdom's technique makes them vectors with voluntary choice of righteous conduct. Current knowledge systems' 8 ways of knowing are shown here. Sense perception is the first among them. Who guides the knower to discover the ways of knowing and explore the areas of knowledge? IB uses sense perception to guide emotion, faith, reason, imagination. This builds memory. Language transmits such ideas and intuition emerges from them. When you have yellow fever, your eyes become yellow like that of a wolf. Can we use sense perception to state that humans have yellow colored eyes? The skin tone of humans too, during this sickness, becomes yellow. During some sickness, even during coronavirus, we may suffer loss of taste or smell. Can we then rely on the senses always? Are they not liable to diseases? If the instrument to judge reality is not constant and perfect during every reading, can the results be relied upon? Always? Alternatively, using sense perception only on a small sample of humans who have lost their taste and smell, can we safely conclude that humans do not have the sense of taste? These are the defects of depending on sense perception. Indian knowledge systems, this is what it concluded. To sum up, we can see on the chart that IKS concludes that depending on sense perception will always lead to a crisis. Why does Indian knowledge systems conclude that depending on sense perception leads to a crisis? To sum up, we can see the reasons. The senses are not reality, but only instruments to measure, assess, absorb reality. Before we do any reading in a scientific laboratory, we first check if the instrument is faulty or not. Just as it is not wise to go in a racing car with a speedometer which gives faulty readings, it is dangerous to drive through life with the instrument of sense perception without using another instrument to see if the reading is accurate on each twist and turn. Hence, first, before driving through life, we must learn the art of keeping the instrument of sense perception within limits. If the technique of tuning the instrument of sense perception to correct its zero error is not there, we should not proceed. Please think over deeply the significance of zero and the way to correct the attitude of humans that leads to a zero error in their perception of reality. Our discussion on mathematics and reality that science wishes to explore will depend strongly on your deep self-analysis of zero. Prepare yourself well for it. This course lays a deep emphasis on practice. Every attempt is made to make all the lectures very short. A 5-minute slot at the end of this lecture is being given for silent sitting. This is to enable the participant to mull over what is said. Whatever has been heard should be repeated in the mind so that it gets absorbed. Just as sugar is stirred in a cup of tea or coffee with a spoon, use the spoon of silence to stir the sugar of Indian knowledge systems in your mind. It takes some time for the tea or coffee to become sweet. Patience is very important. The perspectives shared in the course will seem meaningful only if such silent sitting is done to mull over what has been said. Else, the half an hour spent in delivering the lectures will be a waste of time. We welcome you to undertake an inner journey during these 5 minutes. Only then will knowledge that is outside you will become wisdom inside you. The time allocated for this is actually 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. The time should be increased gradually. This is also a time for the mind to take rest. In case it cannot do that, mull over whether the voice of the conscience has guided you at any time in life till now. We accept challenges for the physical body in games. In a gym, we can have a 20 minutes plank challenge. We may exchange challenges on the quantity of food we can eat. Can we go beyond such challenges to the second step of the Indian knowledge systems? Can we see if the mind itself can take rest and maybe stop working? Can we explore what will happen if it becomes zero? Remember, it is not good to challenge the mind. It rebels and makes you do the opposite of what you want it to do. It is far simpler to observe the mind. For doing this, first the physical body should move as little as possible. Observe the mind as it tells the body to move. You are not telling the body to move, the mind is telling the body to move. Observe the mind. Move away from the mind and see what it is forcing the body to do. Watch the mind as if you are sitting on a fan at a distance. When you are at home, Shavasana in yoga is a good posture for this practice. Try to first silence the body, then the mind. For those who have mastered this, they can try the next method. When you think of nothing, can you experience love without giving it a shape of a thing like your favorite food or a thing that you want to own or the physical form of a person? Can it just be love without an emotion to a person or a thing? Can it be love for the sake of love? How do you experience loving yourself? The purpose of this course is to help you discover yourself, that loving being beyond the body and the mind.